Hi, League of Lit fam. Welcome to another episode of the Jules and Monty 10-year anniversary re-review. Today we are talking about episode 10. We are finally there. Double digits, baby.
Welcome to League of Lit, where we discuss books, adaptations, and anything else we wish to talk about and tie it back to lit, because we can.
It's pretty clear from the title card of this episode that this is obviously going to be a frat-centered episode, which we kind of got from episode 9, knowing that there was this party that Monty and Nancy were both going to be going to. So clearly that's obviously where we're going here. And of course Monty opens with, "I really don't want to go to this party." I just wouldn't go, but we're different people, I guess.
So right here at the top of the episode, we are getting to see Monty talking to the camera, talking about how he doesn't want to go to this party. I appreciate and want to point out how in a lot of the Monty, when Monty is having his moments when he's talking to the camera, he has that whole little answer back. Well, then why are you doing this? Kind of like asking the camera a question like it's an actual person who can respond because, he's aware that there is an audience on the other side of the camera, but, it's not a direct response kind of deal. I think it adds a level of quirkiness to Romeo that we don't necessarily get to see in Shakespeare's rendition. I think that's just one of the ways that you can kind of expound and like, oh, this is the way that I think Romeo actually is. And I mean, it clearly works for this rendition of Romeo and Juliet. Whether it would work on stage, I don't know. But in this kind of format with the whole setting, it works really well. And it just kind of adds another level of endearment to the character. And I don't know, it's just fun.
Monty rolls up on Cliff and Pierre talking, and they're clearly talking about, if we had to guess, Jules, and Cliff offering Jules up to Pierre, which is just slightly creepy in the modern world to think about offering your sister up as like a prize to your fraternity brother. Very odd.
So right after, like while Monty is still making his way into the party, for some reason, and it could just be that, maybe Monty noticed them, and so therefore he's trying to conceal the camera maybe a little bit. For whatever reason, we're getting a glimpse into a conversation that Cliff is having with Pierre. And while we may not be privy to the whole conversation, we get to hear enough that lets us know kind of what's coming with the possibility of Jules being told to date Pierre, which, has been kind of the goal from Cliff's perspective from day one, but it hasn't happened for one reason or another. I think the reaction that Monty has is interesting. So either he did not hear what they had to say, or it didn't fully register in his brain. Because all that we get to see next is him, become nervous because, oh, he's technically run in with Cliff, and he just going on and on about how he has to abort mission kind of deal. He seems more nervous and scared than, wait, they're talking about my girlfriend and her dating somebody else. I mean, I'm sure it's not like they don't know that their relationship is meant to be secret. However, secret or not, I feel like there would be some level of frustration that might exist. So I'm going to go with the Monty didn't fully hear what was said, but us as the audience, we got to. So that's an interesting little thing that happened.
I really love the moment between Monty and Nancy when they run into each other and they have to like kind of pretend they don't know each other, but they obviously know each other. It's just really the awkwardness, the way that they both play that out is just super great. I love Monty getting into the actual room with the party and Mark just calling out Romeo, and you can already tell how far that man is in his cups. It is hilarious. And I just love Monty's reaction is always going to be, "Don't call me that." Another great little reference to the Shakespearean language being used when you're drunk here, when Mark and Tybalt are dueling, so to say, via alcohol. It's just, and I could talk about it all the time, but I just love that Ed and Imogen chose the Shakespearean language to be used this way. I think it makes the most sense in an adaptation where you're not just using Shakespearean language or you're not just using modern language. I just think it's perfection all around.
So here we get to have the duel that happens between Mercutio and Tybalt. In the source material, Mercutio is supposed to be a neutral. He doesn't belong to the Capulets and he doesn't belong to the Montagues either. He is friends with Romeo and Benvolio, but he's not necessarily like team Montague, if you will, or team Capulet. He doesn't really fall on one side. It's like, and I pull that perspective strictly from like some of the words that he uses of like a plague on both your houses. Like it's not. So it's interesting that that Mark is a part of Mu Tau Gamma instead of being, like a representative to be, that mutual neutral person. But at the same time, I think it's important for him to be part of the Mu Tau Gamma house for this drink off, if you will, drink duel to happen. It's it's not very likely that a representative from administration would get into this unless for whatever reason, had some skin in the game. And so this definitely works in the way that the story is set up and that the format that the story is being told in, it definitely works for that. It was just something that I didn't think about until this little rewatch of, it doesn't fully make sense, but it does make sense the more that I think through it.
I really don't necessarily think that Shakespeare meant it to be that way, but I really love "a plague on both of your houses, shut up and drink." I think it's a great line. 10 out of 10. I think the Bard would approve. Ben letting Monty in on the joke that him and Mark have been using the camera to see what they do after drunken nights out. Classic. So gold. Very Benvolio coded. Absolutely loved it. It just genuinely shows that Monty really hasn't been paying that much attention to his own vlog content. And that is just absolutely the icing on the cake.
And then we get to see something get slipped in to Mark's drink, which is meant to be, the dagger, the blade that, officially slains Mercutio. And in the process, Romeo gets hot-headed and poof, there goes Tybalt. Except nobody actually dies in this round. We just have, some near-death experiences, but not quite.
So of course Mark passes out, and Ben then tells Monty, "I caught them slipping Mark something on camera." And Monty does what I would say Romeo does best in any sort of instance like this. He kind of, loses it a little bit, which is understandable in the situation. Sort of the same way that it's understandable in the source material when Romeo sort of goes off. Of course, in the source material, goes left really quickly. In this, it just ends up in a really wild and crazy fight. Clearly a little bit more of an emotionally charged episode in episode 10. It's just an interesting take on the duel scene between obviously Mercutio and Tybalt, which then leads to Tybalt versus Romeo, and of course kind of starts the downfall of the entirety of Romeo and Juliet. So it is fun that we're really at this point, we are at the moment where everything is sort of about to really start to fall apart for our two young lovers, which is sad.
So the end of this episode leaves us with questions of what is going to happen to Romeo, especially if you are familiar with the source material. Like, what's coming, but will they go about it in the same way that the source material does? Will there be death or not? And I'll just go ahead and spoil that one for you. There will not. No death here. Banishment, yes, but no death.
So until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this very special League of Lit for the Jules and Monty 10th year anniversary.
Please make sure you follow us at League of Lit Podcast on Instagram and at League of Lit Pod on TikTok.
If you have any suggestions for an episode, please feel free to leave a comment on leagueoflit.tumblr.com.